Good afternoon, Pete. How are you today?
You got any, I'm great, but you got any commentary on that subject?
I'm going to stick to the economy right now. That's
All right.
okay.
Fair enough. I don't blame you.
No problem. And actually, I mean, on certainly a serious note, Pete, one of the reasons I'm calling is, we're certainly hearing from our constituents and many people across the province that, people are really starting to feel the effects of a changing economy. Mm-hmm. We've heard stories of, people losing their jobs in different parts of the province. People worried about making their mortgage payments, worried about retirement incomes. And some people are really worried about the future. And I think when we, sit back and say, well, why are those worries there? Mm-hmm. There's two significant things that, in my role as the opposition MHA responsible for finance that, prompt me to talk about government planning. Mm-hmm. And, the current financial crisis, as the Premier has called it, that's facing government. The reality is that it isn't a result of oil prices. It's a result of the failure of the current government to plan. And I'm sure many of your listening audience would know this, last year's budget, the PCs planned for a deficit that accounted for almost 50 cents of every dollar mm-hmm. that they're facing now. And that was when oil was selling for over $100. Mm-hmm. They failed to plan for the risks that are associated with not being able to control almost 30% of their revenue, which is oil royalties.
Right.
And, a simple solution, would have been, to put away a reserve fund, to have in times of volatility as we're seeing now. And, the price of oil not only impacts the revenue that the province has and the government has to invest in social programs and community infrastructure and the things that a government needs to invest in, but it's going to have an effect on our economy. Mm-hmm. And that's what, those job losses are certainly going to be an indication of.
But how does the government put away money when they are trying to catch up, I suppose, now that they finally have some revenue, trying to catch up in terms of infrastructure? Everybody is screaming about their bridge and their ferry and their school and their hospital, you name it. The pressure is out there, and these are not just fabricated, interests for people. They clearly need these services and facilities, and a government is there to provide them as best they can. And sometimes you have to dip into future monies to do that.
Well, I think effective governments and smart governments plan for the future, and they anticipate the unexpected.
So what should they have not done? That's my question. What things did they do? Did they spend money on that they shouldn't have spent money on?
Well, time and again, the Auditor General has found issues with oversight and management. Mm-hmm. We've seen, issues with, crown corporations that are responsible to report to government, healthcare corporations, school boards, et cetera, that, have been identified by the Auditor General that, the management practices aren't making sure that every single penny is being taken care of. I'll give you a real practical example. When you have an employee of an agency go on holidays and travel to the U.S., they need a U.S. phone for while they're on vacation, and when they get back, that account is not closed. Then your money slips out the door. And when this is happening en masse, we have vehicles that the Auditor General just released a report late last fall around the vehicle fleet that government is responsible for managing. And, there's vehicles that they can't find. There's vehicles that they're not sure what the usage has been. There hasn't been a good management of that fleet program. And on top of that, they actually don't have the right or the position covered to actually be the fleet manager. Then, those are really practical things that need to happen, but you can't do that if you don't understand how basic financial administration works. And quite frankly, Pete, I don't think people of the province have confidence that Paul Davis and his team, quite frankly, have the experience to lead and manage through this crisis.
But you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it yourselves, no matter who's in there. You're talking about essentially employing more public servants to keep tabs on bureaucrats and to ensure that the accounting and the all of the accounting for things is taken seriously and followed up on.
I think lots of small business operators would argue that, you don't necessarily need more people to make sure that accountability for processes and systems and, good administration functions are happening. It's about discipline. It's about making sure that the money's being spent in the right way. And, we have...
So those things aren't going to happen if and when the Liberals form a government here. You're fairly confident you're going to be able to rein that in and keep tabs on it all and ensure that the wastage isn't going to be there down the road.
I think people, quite frankly, are expecting us to do that. And, I'm confident that under the leadership of Dwight Ball with, the team of leaders, that we will do the work. I'm confident that you'll see us being honest with people about the facts and that we can better manage the present, the circumstances that we're faced with today, with a view to the future. We have important decisions to make from a social perspective, around the infrastructure, for example, of education in our province. And full day kindergarten is an important topic. Certainly, it comes up on the doorsteps when I'm out, speaking to constituents in my district. And we have to make sure that the money is not being wasted, so it's spent in the right place. And this government has had a 10-year track record of mismanaging money, and I think that that's coming to fruition now when 50 cents of every dollar that we're facing in a deficit was incurred when oil was at over $100.
I was going to ask you about the full day kindergarten because, of course, a lot of people are saying that maybe this is not the right time, although it's desperately needed and a very important thing in most people's estimation that you got to have the money to do it, and maybe there are things that are crying out even more so for the revenue.
And I think it's important to remember why the provincial finances are in this situation. Government under the Conservatives didn't plan for the volatility around oil prices, and it's not just the oil price; it's the oil production, it's the Canadian dollar that all factor into that. Almost 30% of the revenue that we take in from oil royalties, and if you don't plan, some type of mediation fund, or people will call it a rainy day fund, that can help you when that money contracts, then you're going to have to make some tough decisions. And the issue is that we've got kids in our province who deserve and are entitled to quality education, and full day kindergarten has been proven to be part of that important investment in making sure that early learning in the early years happens. And I think that people are not going to tolerate government not making decisions that are in the best interest of the community, but making decisions in the best interest of their own political future. And I think I have a tremendous amount of confidence in the electorate to be able to see through some of the smoke and mirrors that the current Conservatives are putting up about their successes when people are hurting and people are disappointed and people are frustrated and angry about some of their choices. I expect you're going to see people mobilizing to challenge them.
Well, we're going to find out in relatively short order, we assume. Is this Bill 42 legislation going to go through? Is it going to get done on 130 days, do you think?
Oh, this is certainly, let's be clear, this is the government's bill. Premier Davis owns Bill 42, and, quite frankly, I'm really proud that under the leadership of Dwight Ball that we were successful in changing Bill 42 so that the Commission could have more flexibility.
But you could have voted against it, too, and you didn't in the end. I'm just wondering, is it understood that it's not going to go anywhere for this particular coming election?
Yeah, so based on the information that I studied and many of our caucus members, we don't have any confidence that the Commission's report is going to get done in 120 days. There hasn't been a report of this size and magnitude done anywhere in Canada for anywhere close to the amount of time that's left between when Premier Davis brought this in the House of Assembly and when he's required to call an election. So I think he set the process up to fail from the get-go. What I'm proud of is that Dwight had the foresight to be able to get a legislative amendment into that bill that said the important conversation about democracy and about representation that needs to happen and people expect to happen will continue. Should the deadline not be met, it'll continue into 2016. And be a conversation that's meaningful and fruitful based on input from the people of the province. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't have any confidence at all that we're going to be doing anything other than an election with 48 seats come this fall.
And it'll be 40 by the election following that.
I think it'll be what the people of the province and what the commission comes back to. I mean, the direction from government right now is 40 seats, and as the commission does its work, and the 500,000 plus of us that need to have involvement in this discussion as we, say how we feel about it, and people have an opportunity to talk about it. When they come back with a report, which I believe will be after the election, then we'll have to make those decisions as a community, and government will have to act on what the community wants what the people want the decision to be. But let's be clear, Premier Davis was the one that started the process, and he started a year earlier. And quite frankly, I think lots of people, and many of your listening audience, are questioning the Premier's motives on why now was the right time to have this conversation. The Tories had a chance to have a conversation about boundaries in 2006 and chose not to make any changes.
Oh, no doubt. But still people are wondering why there wasn't more delay or fight back, and that it got to pass so quickly. And also people want to know exactly where MHA pensions are going as well, and whether or not that's going to be something that's going to be changed before the election following this one coming in the fall. Cathy Bennett, I got to leave, but let's talk again soon.
No
Appreciate
problem.
the chat.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time. Bye-bye.